For this last year, we have been hearing a lot of calls for ceasefire from some people. We've heard them on October 7th, just as soon as Hamas was able to finish their slaughtering of more than 1,200 Israelis, then it was okay to have a ceasefire just so Israel would not be able to respond. So some people have been calling it for a week after. People like the Congress people and senators from the Squad, people like Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib, they have called for ceasefire about a week after. So great for them to wait at least a bit. And it wasn't that much longer until you started hearing calls for ceasefire from the Biden administration, from the European leaders around the world, and from many of the Israeli public. And you might be wondering why I'm starting with this when it comes to title "The Palestinian People Are the Problem." And I think when it comes to people who call for ceasefire, and now I'm not specifically talking about people like Rashida Tlaib, who I think are anti-Semitic and just hate the Jews and hate Israel for the sake of it. I'm more talking about, I think, people like Biden and Blinken, who at least I don't think they want to see Israel be gone, but I think they have a major misunderstanding about what Palestinians stand for and what Palestinians want. Uh, so first, I wanna and joining me today is James. Welcome to the Daily Objective. First, I wanna cover something I've been thinking about a lot. For those who don't know, I live in Slovakia, and there are a few podcasts I listen in Slovak when I wanna hear about domestic politics because I wanna keep myself informed. And one person was talking about I don't know what specifically now, but he mentioned the idea of liberalism and that one of the sort of, I think, fathers of sort of liberalism, and I don't remember who specifically was it, said that humans have this sort almost like inherent yearning for freedom or yearning for liberty. And I think something that has happened in the West is we sort of accepted it and now are automatically applying it to every single person on the earth that we and it's sort of it comes from a good place. We are living in a free world and we are at a point where you can't really understand a person who would want to live under a totalitarian regime. It's really hard thing to grasp that you want to live under an oppressive regime. But I think that's something that has been something that people miss is the fact that what Palestinians want is exactly that. They want some sort of Islamic caliphate, and we can see it from there, or even if not that. So we've seen that from Hamas, but you could argue that the Palestinian Authority is not Islamic in nature when it comes to pretty much the Arabic world has been split between two things, sort of Islamic theocracy and sort of like Arab atheistic socialism. And you've seen that around the world. So, but neither of them are for freedom. Neither of them are for any kind of liberty. You have to also realize communism itself is mystical in nature. It is still it does still preserve a lot of the sort of Islamic beliefs. That's why I think it has been so easy to basically jump between these two things. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna go to you, James. But what do you think about this? Basically, that this calls for ceasefire. It's almost like we need to save the Palestinians from Hamas. We need to make sure because Palestinians want to live. They want to live in a free country, don't you think so?
There is no automatic knowledge that freedom is a good thing at all. People are not born knowing that what rights are, individual rights are, why they're necessary, or much less the philosophical foundations of it. That is all discovered knowledge. Slavery dominated the whole world until a couple centuries ago, when liberal thinkers started saying slavery is inherently wrong. And people, for time immemorial, people don't even realize how recent the universal condemnation of slavery and the demand that there be no legal slavery in the civilized world it's a very recent thing for all of humanity. And when you talk about many populations of the world, they are collectivists, they're tribalists. They look at things at the perceptual, not the conceptual level. So it's my tribe versus your tribe. And for millennia, that's how people have looked at things, generally informed by a religious worldview. And Islam is an island of the past, if you will. Compared to the West, that's true. But the West has lost any proper understanding of self-defense itself. And so it says, this is the attitude. If Israel fights back, or if America fights back, there will be blowback, automatic, deterministic blowback from any attack on Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, because the Islamic world will take offense and will only fester and continue that hatred. So the way to get off this hamster wheel of a cycle of hatred is to turn the other cheek nobly and to say, well, we protect you. We're there to protect your rights, and we're going to protect your civilians. No, Palestinians do not have that attitude. We are so mistaken when we cater to the attitude that somehow if we appease them, they'll be impressed at how moral we are, and they'll want to adopt our system. They'll see that we're good and we don't intend them poorly. They intend civilization harm overtly. They are racist in their ideology. It is grounded in a primitive mysticism. This is why Hamas can use, with the local approval, their own civilians as shields. Hamas does not wear uniforms. They use hospitals. They use mosques. They use schools. In other words, Palestinians themselves are well aware of Western morality and are trying to use Western morality, as we've said many times on this show, against us. They are using their own children as shields. They're holding up their babies in front of themselves and shoot the baby, wanting the headline, Israelis killed so many babies today. That's their goal. They are anti-life. Now, it is hard for the Western mind to get around it. We have reached a state of moral development, a different stage, not a perfect one by any means, but it is the state of our moral knowledge that we assume, that we project onto the Muslim world. That is totally a wrong way of going about it. There are many, many millions of people in the Muslim world that would happily be martyrs, Look at the people at 9/11. I know this is more than 20 years ago, but they were suicide bombers. And those aren't the only incidents of suicide bombers. Now, wrap your head around the mentality of a suicide bomber. These are not people that love life like we do in the West. These are people who want to destroy civilization. They don't care if they murder thousands of people in the process. Until and unless we can wrap our heads around the evil that dominates ideologically the Muslim world today, our policy will always fail. We have to denounce, in the same sense that we understood Nazism to be an evil ideology. The only way you're going to get through to those Germans, now not all Germans obviously were Nazis, the only way you're going to get through to German Nazis is to wipe them out and tell them that you're not going to succeed. And we have to overtly stop morally, and this is the underlying thing, we have to stop morally sanctioning it. The problem with fighting communism during the Cold War was just that. Many intellectuals in the West were sympathetic. It was when Ronald Reagan said, no, they're an evil empire. And that's what has to happen first. We have to recognize that the ideology is evil, and that we're fighting that ideology. The minute you do that, you send a shot across the bow to all the Islamicists and all the jihadists out there. We're going to kill you. This is not going to succeed. We're not going to appease you. That is the first step on a road to actually dealing with it, so that they in their own minds question what they're doing. When Biden and Blinken say ceasefire, that is exactly the moral reassurance that Hamas needs to carry on. Oh, we must have some good on our side. Even the president of the United States is saying we've got some good on our side. It both encourages the terrorists and their confidence every time Blinken and Biden open their mouth about a ceasefire, but it discourages the good. Why should we help in the fight? If there's some good on the other side, there isn't any good on the other side. You have to wipe them out in the sense that they are pounded and pounded and pounded into psychological submission, knowing that we know them to be evil. And if they know that we know they're evil, they will get the idea at some point that we got to stop being terrorists. That's the only way to go about it. To win the moral argument, you have to have moral confidence. You have to be able to say, mean it when you say Israel has a right to self-defense. You can't come out with it. The minute Israel starts defending itself, then you denounce them for defending themselves. Well, you've conceded the entire moral case. You've conceded the entire moral case, and you've told the bad guys, you've got good on your side, keep fighting. Keep slaughtering people like you did on October 7th. That's the effect of morality, the power of ideas.
I think one of the points you've made that I definitely want to build upon, there is this idea that, yeah, basically, as long as Palestinians feel they have a support, they'll continue engaging in violence because they see it works. They can see it. I mean, what we've seen, try to remember when it comes to the sort of the Palestinian status on the international world. Has it gotten worse or better after October 7th? Well, many European countries have recognized the state of Palestine. When it comes to United Nations, there are moves to basically make it an official member of the United Nations rather than just an observer. There for some time there was a stop when it comes to funding of UNRWA, but it was restored without pretty much any actual change, any actual, there was an investigation that concluded nothing bad is going on. But when you take everything together, they've basically been rewarded. They have been rewarded for their actions. And as long as that keeps happening, I mean, just, whenever people try to justify Russia's invasion of Ukraine, when they say, well, Russia is feeling threatened, many countries are joining NATO, someone said they prefer some Ukrainian politician than the other one. But when they bring up all of these things, they are trying to justify Russia's aggression, but they're also giving legitimacy to what Russia is doing. And when you do that, and will be, I don't know if James, you know this, but there was a October 7th documentary that just came out from the point of view of Hamas. It has been released by Ali Khamenei. We will be talking, that's one of the topics we'll be talking about on the reality show. But yeah, when you say that, the Palestinian people, they are just, they're living under Israeli oppression. They just had to do something. Something had to have happened. You are legitimizing what has happened on October 7th. You are legitimizing all the rapes, all the killings, report recently came out, when I talk about, when October 7th happened, there was a lot of fog of war, and we didn't know. And one story that sort of had someone said was the 40 beheaded babies, and it came out that basically wasn't true. It was just a misreporting. Many things were happening, and people are still using it as as some sort of Israel tried to push this propaganda, despite the fact that it has never happened. But now it came out that it looks like Freudian slip, but Palestinians have joined on October 7 in larger parts. It wasn't just Hamas, that they have put babies in ovens and basically baked them. And that
children in front of their parents. That is true. Mutilating bodies, raping people systematically. All of that is true.
And once you start,
but if you make one little mistake on the atrocity, Israel's a liar. Israel's a liar. Oh, well, how many babies were beheaded? And okay, that was a lie. What? Wait. They were using systematic rape and mutilation. They were, in fact, killing children. So full stop. You've already got the atrocities there. But you're right. Israel effectively gives the Palestinians the two-state solution by withdrawing from Gaza, unilaterally clearing out all Israeli and Jewish settlements from Gaza. And what do they immediately do? They start lobbing rockets. Rather than actually having enjoying a kind of two-state solution by default, de facto two-state solution, they attack Israel. That's what they're all about. They want to destroy Israel. They don't want a peaceful and prosperous country. Get this in your head.
Yeah, I mean, just
People of Great Britain and the United States need to get into their head that these people didn't want a peaceful and prosperous second state of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. They never tried for it. They never worked for it. They never wanted it. They don't want to trade with the West. They don't want Western values. No, they want to destroy Israel, even if that means that their children get martyred. This is a widespread view among Palestinians. Now, it's hard for Western minds to wrap their heads around, but it's simply true. And offering them okay, we'll recognize a Palestinian state in the wake of October 7th is totally to say October 7th was justified. Let's reward you for it. Obviously, you're oppressed people, occupied people, and therefore we'll recognize your statehood. That is simply to sanction and reward that kind of evil. That is, of course, give the giant green light to all Islamicists around the world. Carry on with your jihadist terrorism. You'll get a lot of benefits from it. The West has no moral opposition to you. You must have some morally valid claim that they even recognize. That is all that we accomplish. Perpetual war. They keep saying peace, 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 as if ceasefire means peace. No, ceasefire means continuous jihadist terrorism. Ceasefire means the survival of people who want the destruction of Israel and indeed the destruction of civilization.
Yeah,
get it into our heads.
Yeah, and again, if someone tried to do that to justify a regime that is clearly evil, they would be called down on it. Whenever someone starts talking about, well, the Versailles was too harsh on Germany. It was too harsh of they had to pay a lot of money. They couldn't hold an army. You would completely disregard it. You wouldn't accept, well, just because you
bad the Treaty of Versailles was,
yeah.
It doesn't justify Nazism.
Yeah, and it's very similar. You've lost a war. Yeah, you're gonna suffer for it.
Right.
You cannot use that to
But we can
justify
validly criticize the Treaty of Versailles and still say, I hope, that both the Nazi and the Bolshevik alternatives that Weimar Germany was facing in the early 30s are wrong, no matter what. The Treaty of Versailles, however unfair it was to Germany, and they were the aggressors in that war, so wrap your head around that too. But however unfair or unreasonable or look, I don't like the League of Nations. There are many aspects of the Treaty of Versailles that one can criticize. They do not provide a moral justification either for Nazism or Bolshevism, do they?
And just expanding on when people try to say that Palestinians have sort of had to run to Hamas, similar that the Germans had to run to the Nazi Party because of the Israeli oppression. Well, let's look at the rest of the Middle East, and I'm not trying to make some sort of like racial equivalence that they all share the same ideas. Everyone has free will, and we do see Arabs, not in just Israel, but in Europe, in America, basically living as civilized people. Look at the rest of the Middle Eastern nations. Look at Iran, look at Iraq, look at Saudi Arabia, look at Egypt, look at whatever country you want in the Middle East.
Look at Saudi Arabia. Look at what's the direction Turkey is heading in. Look at the Muslim world. Look at its culture. That is the correct way of going about this. There's no freedom movement for individualism and reason and rights in Egypt or Syria or Yemen or Saudi Arabia or Turkey, which is a NATO.
Right. Unless you're saying that Israel is oppressing all of these nations and that they are pushed to these ideologies because of that. No, they, all of, I would have to go one by one, but most of these are sovereign nations that basically did have a choice at some point because most of them don't even have proper elections, but it's not because there's some sort of like top-down complete oppression. It is because those people are content to live under such regimes, and when you give them a choice, such as Iraq, they won't choose. They won't choose the right thing. Just let them. Wasn't that something George Bush said? Just let them choose. They'll choose the right thing.
Right to self-determination, Daniel. That's it. And all we have to do is give them the self-determination, and we'll see the natural, innate benevolence of human beings rise to the surface, and people will throw off their oppressors. We were told by George Bush that that American troops would be welcomed with open arms by everyone in Iraq, and then, of course, did not turn out to be true. Because most of the people in Iraq, I mean, perhaps apart from some minority elements like the Kurds, most of the elements in Iraq, certainly the main Shia and Sunni groups, both the one thing they could hate each other and attack each other, and of course the minute you leave they will get back at each other's throats, but the one thing they agree upon is their hatred of America and Western civilization. No, you can't. The right of self-determination is not an innate thing that people want. People are not born saying, hey, so just give me a vote, just let me determine my own government. No, when given a chance to determine their own government, many people will vote for outright dictatorship, will vote for authoritarianism or theocracy, especially in the Muslim world today, given their culture and the dominant ideology there.
We have a few super chats from PC. Thank you so much. In the first one, he says, James, why do haters love to say all Jews in Israel back to Germany and Poland? Not all Israeli Jews are of Ashkenazi origin. Mizrahi never left Middle East. Fact.
This is true. Many are immigrants from the Muslim world. There were many Jews from Egypt and Syria and Yemen and Morocco and all across the Muslim world. It's not just the Christian world that was oppressing Jews. I mean, there was
yeah,
the
and
Holocaust.
many of them lived in that actual region.
Oh, well, yes, of course. For example, in East Jerusalem, Jews have been living there for many, many centuries, uncounted centuries. It's a matter of archaeological controversy, I know, but they've always been there, some of them. And of course, there has been migration from other places, places in the Muslim world, places in the Christian world, where the Jews were systematically discriminated against, oftentimes killed. And sometimes, look at Nazi Germany, killed in the millions in Central Europe. So that's the whole point of Israel, is that they have been an oppressed minority, whether they're in Muslim or in Christian countries over the last century. I mean, intensely oppressed.
Yeah, this has been used basically just an attack on. It's an anti-Semitic thing, just go back to. It's a racist statement when people say, "Go," just because you haven't left your mom's basement since ever doesn't mean that people don't migrate or people don't go around. And I'm not referring to you, James, but the people who say go back to.
Oh, well, can you imagine in Great Britain today, if you went into London and you say all the immigrants from the Indian subcontinent, all Hindus and Muslims, all Pakistanians Pakistani and Indian immigrants, even in the second, third, and fourth generations, go back to India. Everyone would immediately see that as the ugly, racist attitude that it is. And yet people will say the same of Jews in Israel. Go back to what? Poland, where there was Auschwitz, as we say? Go back to where? Yemen, Egypt, where Jews were having such a wonderful time. It's insane. It's racist. It's collectivism at the crudest level.
Yeah, and also the most important point, immigration is good. People should be able to move around and basically settle. What's the chance that you are born in the perfect country for you? Not that big. So maybe a different country is something that's much better for you. But just
the migration of civilized, peaceful people is a good thing. And people have a right to move around if they are rights respecting people. That is absolutely true. Can you imagine obviously, I mean, Native Americans, would they have a right to have immigration laws, but America doesn't have a right to have immigration laws now? Or keep out those Europeans? That a sort of racist anti-immigration assumption that natives that would be okay. It would have been okay, but we just had Columbus Day here in America. It would have been okay for Native Americans to keep out foreigners from immigrating. Now, if you were to say that in America today, you would be labeled a racist because you want to keep out foreigners from America. It's just another kind of racism. You want to keep out Jews from our sacred Muslim area. That's the attitude Muslims have. Any Jew whose foot is near any holy area or area they regard as their territory should be killed, should be killed. It's a pollution. It's a religious pollution in their mind. That is their mentality. Jewish people controlling Jerusalem is a sacrilege, is a deep offense to us as a people. That is the mentality of many Muslims today in the area.
And we have one more super chat from BC. Thank you so much. He says, "Are there any democratic Muslim nations?" I would have to like really look at. So there are, probably even most of them have some sort of elections, but
Iran just had an election. They
yeah,
have
yeah.
elected
I think
election.
democratic isn't even like a proper word. Just the fact that the supreme leader of Iran is, for example, not an elected position. I think rather than when you look at something like democratic, you basically look at, are all positions elected? How are they appointed? Are there separation of powers? And also, of course, how safe are the elections?
Election
How
democracy does not confer legitimacy. If there are 9 people, if there are 10 people in a room and 9 of them decide to beat up the 10th, that supermajority of 90% does not make beating up that 10th person moral. No, it is still immoral. Democracy does not confer legitimacy onto a government. The right of self-determination is not the significant thing. The question is, are actual rights, individual rights being protected by the country? That and that alone confers legitimacy to a country. Now, in the wake of the fall of the Ottoman Empire, Turkey under Ataturk tried to become modern, to go Western. You can see that the people of Turkey today are rejecting that, returning to traditional forms of Islam and Islamic type government. It seems to be the preference of a bunch of people in Turkey. Now, that does not make it okay. I don't care if now it's true that in Iran, I don't trust those elections. The Ayatollah determines who can even be on the ballot. So you get a rigged kind of election there. But let's say that there is a large population, by the way, in Iran who are not happy with their government, would like to be more modern and Western facing, but are not permitted to. And so it's the group of people who want Islamic rule who've taken over. Now, even if they were not there, even if it was a vote of 90% of the people, that would not make the oppression for the other 10% okay. No, I'm sorry. The right of self-determination is total nonsense. We have to
yeah.
get that out of our head.
Rather than using that sort of like a democratic nation, I usually like to use maybe liberal democracy. I think it's a much better term to sort of
Much
like
better.
refer to a proper country. Or basically, does a country have like liberal principles? And, by that I mean
Rights
separation of
respecting.
powers and rights respecting, of course.
Is the government trying to protect the rights of its own citizens, the freedom of its own citizens? That is the key question. Now, I grant you that exists along a continuum, but the question is, does it respect? What is the extent to which it respects and enforces individual rights? That's the essential question, not a question of are most people satisfied with their government? Because if most people were if most slave owners in the South, in my country's history, were satisfied with slavery, that doesn't make slavery okay. You could have taken a vote in many southern states in the antebellum South, and slavery would have won the election for most people. That right of self-determination makes slavery okay in the Confederate South? No, it did not. We have to get this idea out of our heads that people, one, just give them democracy and they'll vote for Western liberalism. No, they will not. And two, that democracy confers some kind of like some magic pixie dust confers legitimacy on an authoritarian government. Again, it does not.
Yeah. So, just to are there any countries? No, I don't think so. Even when people bring up an example like United Arab Emirates, that's why I like to emphasize it's also not just about the sort of like economic rights, because United Arab Emirates have very low like judicial effectiveness. The legislative process basically from one day to another, things can just change basically. So that's why it's a mix of those, and it's also on the spectrum. It's not like do you have liberty or no, and it's like you either have it or not. It's like a pretty big spectrum, and but there are few things you can decide it on. But just quickly, we have one more super chat from a friend. Thank you so much. He says just to thank you for James's and ARCUK's moral clarity, not mine. Okay.
Daniel, you've got some impressive moral clarity too, and you're part of ARCU. You're an essential mechanism of ARCUK. We couldn't do it without you, Daniel. But thank you very much.
And we will be continuing this on the reality show. The topic is Campus Intifada endorses the real Intifada. Let's learn more about it on the show because we are really late. So we'll see you there in just about a minute or so. Thank you, James. Thank you, everyone, and bye-bye.
Be safe.